Okay, so we're starting recording. So thanks everybody. This is the Effective Meeting Management Training. This training's being done by popular demand. I have 4 different people in 2 days last week that were like, hey, you ought to train us on how to do this stuff. So this was me setting up a training, and then I got it forwarded to a bunch of people. So I've got way more people than I was anticipating here today, but we'll go through it anyway. So normally I get our meeting started at 11:05, but we're a little bit late because we've got a lot of people who joined. So let me go over really quickly. The purpose of this meeting is to provide training on effective meeting management, and we're going to be going over this PowerPoint presentation. Let me pull that guy up here. So the deliverables are going to be just the training recording. So we're going to record what we go over in this training for those who miss it. By the way, for that note, this speakerphone in the middle of the room is not working. I'm literally doing this training on this little speakerphone next to my computer because we're having technical difficulties. So if you guys want to make any comments, just let me repeat it for the recording for the people on the phone, if that's cool. So the agenda items today that we're going to go through the training is, how do I schedule the meeting? How do I prepare for the meeting? How do I start a meeting? How do I run the meeting and take the meeting notes? What other tools are there for meeting facilitation? How do I end a meeting? And can I see a demo of how this all works? So we'll fly through the PowerPoint for the first like 8 of those, or however many they are, and then I'll show you just a live demo about how this all works. Any questions before we get started? All right. So here's where I can take notes as we go throughout all this, but we'll get started with the presentation. Okay. And I don't know why Janice Rapp wants to be front and center. There we go. Okay. Effective meeting management. So my name is Ryan Campbell. I'm the knowledge manager. I'm not the effective meeting manager here at the company, but people like the way I take meetings or do meetings, so I'm just doing a training on it for the company. Okay, topics to cover. Scheduling the meeting, preparing for the meeting, start the meeting, run the meeting and take notes, use other useful tools for the meeting facilitation, ending the meeting, and then just a live demo. That's what we'll go through. By the way, if you haven't been in a training with me like in the past, I talk really fast, and if you have questions, just bring them up as they go, because otherwise you're never going to get a word in edgewise. Okay, so scheduling a meeting. First of all, create a new meeting in Outlook with the following. The subject, which is basically a summary description of the meeting. In the body, you want 3 core important pieces. Number 1, the purpose, which is a 1-sentence summary of why we're holding the meeting. Number 2, deliverables, which will be what will be created by the end of the meeting. Sometimes it's just as simple as meeting notes or a summary recording of the training. Sometimes it's more complicated in terms of a specific work collaborative deliverable that we need to come up with before the end of the meeting. And number 3, the agenda, topics to be addressed in the meeting, always written in question form. I'm going to spend a lot of time right now talking about these 3 points because I think they're probably the secret sauce to conducting efficient meetings. Okay. Never, ever, ever go to a meeting. This is what I learned when I went through the, let me back up. I went through a facilitation training for a day or 2 or something like that with a professional facilitator who taught us a lot of these kinds of techniques. And this is one of the things that he harped on a lot. And he basically said, you ought to make it a guerrilla warfare culture change within your company that you do never attend a meeting without a stated purpose. There has to be a reason for a meeting. You just don't attend a meeting because somebody sent you a meeting invite and it has some sort of ambiguous title in a subject. There has to be a purpose for every meeting, and it has to be stated for people to know. There are lots of people that are very busy and doing lots of coordinating between multiple meetings, and they need to be able to look at your meeting and understand well whether or not they really need to be there or not. So purpose has to be in every meeting invite. Number 2, deliverables. That one just helps people understand what they're trying to create or how they would contribute to the creation of what's going on. Or maybe they just want to know what's going to be come out of the deliverables so that they can catch up with somebody and see what the outcomes are, because they're not going to help participate creating them, but they want to know what they are. So that's another important one there. And then for the agenda, so this one was really interesting for me, and it took the most to try and get used to. I always write a topic for things that I wanted to do, but I'd never necessarily written it in question form. And after having done it for over a year and I realize now the power of why everything has to be written in a question form, because when you look at something and it's an ambiguous topic, people have to think about what that means and what that might imply and whether or not they're involved. But if you put something down as a simple question, people can look at the question and they can figure out what the answer is. They immediately go into answer mode in their head, and it allows people to process through whether or not they need to be at a meeting or how they can contribute and prepare before the meeting, because you've simplified the communication down into something that's a question. Now, these agenda questions are a whole lot harder to write than just randomly rambling off on something that you want to talk about as an ambiguous topic. But that's the whole point. You need to do the hard work and the heavy lifting to write something down as a question so that people don't have to think as much when they're preparing for the meeting. You know what the meeting's about, but if you want people to come properly prepared for the meeting, they need to understand what the meeting's about. That's why you write questions, agenda questions. It's for them, not for you. I like to sometimes cheat and like put something off to the side that says quick presentation or quick updates or something that kind of gives a summary about what we're going to do or what this means, but I still write every single agenda point as a question. Okay, I think we've beaten that dead horse. Okay, number 3 on there, add attendees by name or by Outlook distro. Some of this is no-brainer stuff, but I'm just putting it all out there to be specific. So add a meeting room if needed, or add a location. Add a WebEx meeting, and there's a link there to some instructions in the KB. There's hyperlinks throughout all of this for more information about specifics if you want to learn how to do specific pieces. And you'd want to add the location with the meeting or with the bridge number if you need to as well. At the very bottom, many of these tasks and typing can be done quickly using an auto hotkey script, such as one like this that says WebEx and conference bridge, blah, 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 and pin, because I use that one all the stupid time. So I have literally a hotkey that just types it out for me. So those are some good things to do, and there's a link to auto hotkey here if you want to go in and learn more about how to do scripting. I have an entire script of hotkeys that's like pages and pages long that I've built over the time. Yeah, and it's got texting stuff in there that shortens small, or that takes small abbreviations and turns them into full sentences and URLs and that kind of stuff. So Texture is awesome, but this is better, just saying.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay, next page, or next final thing. So after you've got it all prepared, you send the meeting invite to the attendee. Okay, preparing for the meeting, hopefully before it starts, or at least in the first 5 minutes while people are gathering in. These are things that you would do. Create a page in OneNote linked to the meeting in Outlook. And I'm going to show you how this works, but that's the note meeting. Let's see, OneNote is the application that I highly recommend for taking all meeting notes during a meeting. And that's because it's highly integrated with Outlook. Okay, so bullet number 1. In OneNote, press the Add Page button and then press the Meeting Details button to import the details on the page. Again, I'll show you how this works. In Outlook Calendar, right-click on the meeting invite and select Meeting Notes, and then take notes on your own and select a section. Those are the 2 ways that you can add notes. I normally do the first one. I just pull up one note, add a page, put it where I want it, and then connect the meeting that I want to connect it to. That basically sucks all of the information out of the OneNote meeting invite into your meeting notes. Makes it a whole lot easier and gives you a whole lot of information. Next, double-click on the invitation message to expand and see purpose and deliverables and agenda. Let me just go back here really quick and just show you in OneNote as we go through some of these. So when you've got a new meeting that you're creating, you just basically hit the add page button, you hit meeting details, effective meeting management, and it sucks it all in there. So that was the first thing that I was showing you. The next thing is you hit invitation message, you double-click there, and double-click the participants, and it expands these sections. That's all I'm talking about there. Go back to this. Copy the agenda questions to the bottom below the notes. So I'm actually going to show you how this works here. So take all these guys here and put them down here in the meeting notes. And then I like to get rid of some of these tabs so that they're sucked over there. Okay, next, format each agenda question as a heading, and you can use the keyboard shortcut Control-Alt-2. So I just go through here and say, okay, heading, 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 heading. Start the WebEx and connect to the TV using AirMedia, and I did that today, so I'm not going to show you how that works. Acknowledge and note each attendee. Check the box next to their name as they arrive for the meeting. That's what we were doing when everybody started arriving here before we started the recording. This is an important note. It's important to acknowledge people when they arrive to a meeting. Personally, if you arrive to a meeting, nobody knows or cares that you're there, and then you leave, it's kind of demotivating, or it feels like you're not valued for coming to the meeting. Acknowledge people when they walk in. It's a good way to build relationships with the people that you're running your meetings with, for what it's worth. Wait, I didn't mean to change. And wait up to 5 minutes for all attendees to arrive to allow time for people to arrive from other meetings. We're busy, you're running from meeting to meeting. The meeting that you just, before you in that same room just finished, people need time just to fill in and then file in and sit down. So wait 5 minutes is the standard rule. And I always get started at the 5-minute mark. Okay, so that's preparing for the meeting. Once you got all that done, you start the meeting. So start the meeting no later than 5 minutes after the scheduled time to be respectful of everyone else's time, unless you're still counting attendees like we were doing 7 minutes after. So start your meetings on time and be respectful of people's meetings to arrive within that first 5 minutes. That's another corresponding thing. Number 2, read through the meeting purpose, deliverables, and agenda, which is what we did when we got started. Start by reading through the first question on the agenda. So in this training, the first question is basically the parts of the training itself. So we're just going through the training. But that's the idea, is you just barrel in and get started and read that question and have that discussion about that first question. Okay, running the meeting and taking notes. So take notes in the OneNote page during the meeting, and during the meeting of the answers to the agenda questions. This is the capture in the workflow technique for anybody that's familiar with KCS. I know a lot of you guys are. This is how you do KCS in meetings. You take notes during the meeting about what comes up and what needs to be done. Use headings to visually distinguish each new topic. So back on this OneNote page, if you use the headings that are up here, these styles, and you can do Control+1 there, or Control-Alt1 and Control-Alt2, and there's lots of different headings that you can use. Then what happens is when I hit enter and start typing, it knows that this is a new section and it starts doing normal text again. So these headings are really powerful if you use them the way that they're intended to do. Okay, back to this. Oh, let me go one more thing, or maybe I go over this. I'll probably just go over this. Yep, there we go. So there's your standard headings that I use most often. Heading 1, 2, 3, and then Control-Alt-N turns something from a heading back to normal formatting. So that's another one that's useful. You can also do Control-Alt-0 for what it's worth. Note only the highlight, the answers provided, or the decisions made during the meeting. You don't have to be a full transcriptionist to be able to run a meeting and take all of your notes, but you ought to at least make sure that you go over and capture the highlights, the answers to the questions that you were asking, and whatever decisions were made. And another point here that's good to know is that you can use Control dot and Control slash for bullets and numbered lists. So if you're coming here and we're getting an answer to a question like starting the meeting or running the meeting and taking notes, so we can just take a note here, Control plus dot is for bullets, and that was an important thing I learned in this training, and I can actually use Control dot and it turns it into a bullet. And then other thing and other thing, so forth and so on. Some more notes on running the meeting and taking notes. Document the assignments, including who was assigned in the task items section. There's a Control+1, which is a custom tag, number 1, for the to-do list item. And I recommend modifying this tag to be red for increased visibility. So let me show you what this means. So in Outlook, we determined that on this thing, can I see how this works? So Ryan needs to do a demo of how this all works by end of meeting. And then if I hit Control+1, it puts a checkbox next to it, meaning, hey, this is something somebody needs to do. And you'll notice that it changes to red. Red is not the default in OneNote. You have to go up here to the custom tags where it says Control+1, and that is the custom tag to do Control+1. But I go in here and I modify it, and I just change the font color to red from automatic, and then it makes it so every task item is blaringly red and obvious that somebody needs to do something.
Do you have a task list in another notebook somewhere that just has Ryan's task list that has all your to-do?
Good question. No, I don't have a task list in somewhere in Notebook. Nope, in OneNote. I'll show you how I do it instead. So number 2 here, just a quick tip. The syntax should be the assigned person dash the task description for that person space and then the due date of when they need to do it. For example, Ryan, submit goals by Friday. And you can also see effective task management training for best practices, which is another training I do that talks more about specifically task management and how we take care of these tasks that come out of meeting notes and manage them as part of your workflow. But that's a whole other hour-long presentation that I love very much. So I'm not going to dive into that. No, I don't have somewhere in OneNote. It exists elsewhere. But I take it from the OneNote meeting notes and put it where it needs to go. Okay. Next, include hyperlinks to anything referenced in the meeting. For example, if you're giving a presentation, you ought to have a link to that presentation in your meeting notes. So I have the link to the effective meeting management training in the purpose here. If there's anything else that we reference as part of this meeting, I would want to make sure that I include whatever hyperlink there is to that in the meeting notes as I'm going. That means you have to get pretty fast at knowing where stuff is, grabbing that URL, putting it into the meeting note, and embedding it into the hyperlink as the meeting's going. It's the most efficient way to do it. You have to be fast, but it's the right way to do it. You can also use the Control K to insert as a hyperlink. So if I wanted to come in here and say, we're going to talk about the KCS analyst training, and I'm going to hit Control Alt N, which gets rid of, oh, sorry, back up. There we go. Come on. What the heck? Why is my formatting thing not working? Of course, in this training, it would stop working. Oh, I know why. Because I did it as a tag. So if I hit Control 1, it adds it as a custom tag. And then if I do it again, it checks it, which is nice. And then if I do it again, it gets rid of it. So it wasn't formatting. That's a different thing. So anyway, so if I've got the KCS analyst training, I can hit Shift and Home, and it selects the whole thing. Hit Control and K, pulls up my meeting notes, and then I can type in the URL, or if I already have it saved in my hotkeys, I know that there's the analyst training. That's another tip, is use text expanders to be able to hide your URLs that you use on a regular basis, like my KCS analyst training. And there we go, we've got a hyperlink. So that's how it works. Okay. Take a picture of a whiteboard done, let's see, take pictures of any whiteboarding done in the meeting and insert into the meeting notes. Along with that, recommend an instant cloud hosted photo sync like Google Photos. So I literally take a picture of something on my phone. Let's show you how this works. I'm going to take a quick picture here so that I can unlock my screen. Smile for posterity, peeps. Good job, Sarah. All right. So now, nope. So now I can come over here. I just took a picture of my whiteboarded meeting notes that we were going through, and I can go to photos.google.com. And sure enough, there's my meeting. And I can be like, okay, well, Control Print Screen. I'm going to take this. This is the important information here, so we need to grab this. We're going to take that, and we're going to throw it into this meeting, and there we go. For posterity, on the recording. That's what you get for sitting in the front, guys. So that's the idea. That's how you would do something like that. Okay. Use indents. So just basic outlining with tab and shift tab to designate sub-ideas. So sometimes when you get in here and you're like, wow, this is getting really messy. Okay, let's pull these guys over and let's make sure that this section is clearly defined as opposed to the headers. And we can do the same thing over here. Okay, let's get this thing at the end. We want these to be over here. Just use tab or shift tab to pull things back. And it's just basic formatting, basic outlining to be able to make things easier to read as you go. Just another tip on taking the notes. Okay, other useful tools for meeting facilitation. Check this. It's great for capturing and brainstorming and sessions and easily rearranging and grouping ideas with hotkeys. So for example, decorate for Halloween. Here's a list, and it's just basically an online outliner. And I can go in and put some tasks together as to who's going to do what for different things and embed things under each other. It's different than OneNote. It's very similar. But the thing that's nice about it is you can easily move things around. So I can take meeting with Pam and pull it to the top and get pictures for the top 8 superheroes, and I just hit Control and down, 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 and it goes to the bottom of the list. So easy for brainstorming where you want to rearrange a lot of ideas, because OneNote's not as great at that. It's also a great task management system. It's the one that I talk about in our task management training, but that's a different story. The Note app is great for the group sort activities where everyone can participate adding and changing virtual sticky notes. This is another facilitation technique I learned in the facilitation training, and it's really good for things like, okay, let's put everybody's names up on sticky notes, and then we can all virtually be on the same Note app instance, and you just share a URL with everybody, and you can all be sorting and moving around these sticky notes at the same time on the same online session. So it's really good for, let's figure out who all the KCS coaches are, and then let's figure out who all the analysts are, and let's just assign all of the analysts underneath each one of the coaches. And it's a good way to be able to visually see where everybody is assigned to. That's the example that we used on this one. Great app for that specific type of meeting management for a group sort facilitation activity. And finally, PowerPoint. It's great for trainings and presenting information in an organized way, because you get to step people through one by one with animations as to how to do it. And that's a totally different training as well, is how to do good PowerPoint training presentations and stuff. I've learned some great stuff from Brian Olson, who's really my mentor in terms of all the things that I've learned in PowerPoint over the years. and maybe we'll do another training on that some other day. But that's another great tool used for meeting facilitation, like we're using today. Ending the meeting. Review the tasks with the attendees at the end of the meeting. So at the end of a meeting, we would go through and say, okay, so Ryan's going to do the demo of how this all works by the end of the meeting. Ben's going to do the KCS analyst training or whatever, and you just kind of go through. Everybody needs to be aware of what they need to do when they leave this room at the end of the meeting. So make sure so everyone is clear. Oh, wow, I'm going to have to change that. So here's my meeting note. So in the end of the meeting, change typo on first bullet. I'll put Ryan. And it's totally okay to stop in the middle of your meeting and type something out or write a task assignment. It makes you more efficient in the long run if you just take the time to do it in the workflow. Okay, so make sure everyone is clear and publicly accountable for their action items. Finish meeting a few minutes early. This is a good tip here. Have time to wrap up from the meeting and make people happy. People like it when you don't run all the way up to the end of the meeting and they're sprinting to arrive before the 5-minute mark at 11:05 for the next meeting. So if you can close your meetings 5 minutes early, you will find that people will be more willing to come to your meetings, which is good. And it also gives you time to be able to wrap up anything that needs to be done, send up a meeting note, or wrap up the meeting notes and send them off so that you're off the hook and you can just easily go on to your next meeting where you need to. Okay, press the email page button, which is Control-Shift-E if you want to do it that way, to send the meeting notes out to attendees. So this creates a new email with the meeting notes in the body, the title is the subject, and the attendees in the two fields. This is really why it's so cool to do meeting notes in OneNote connected to a meeting in Outlook, because you can do this. So we're done with this meeting, and we hit either Control-Shift-E, or we just come up to the email page, and it creates a new email. There's all the people that were invited to this meeting. There's the title, subject of the meeting, and here is the link to the meeting notes and the effective meeting management training. So it just goes through and shows you everything from the meeting in the meeting notes in this email. Yes, Sarah?
How long do you store notes? I mean notes. How long do you
in OneNote?
Yes.
I don't ever get rid of them. They're small enough that it really doesn't take up that much space. I mean, you're just typing out text. Literally, these things are kilobytes a piece. Yeah, so I don't ever get rid of them. Now, I archive notebooks so that if I don't need them anymore, like my supervisor of the PMO notebook from years ago, I don't use that anymore. It's archived. So it still exists, but I just don't have it in my standard notebooks over here on the left-hand side. Okay, so that's what you do. You just hit that email page button. It pulls that up. Let me get back to the presentation. You also want to make sure to delete the link to meeting notes line. Mostly because it causes confusion unless you're using a shared notebook hosted in a Mojo SharePoint library, which I have done before, but it hardly ever works well, and I just recommend delete it. So this line right here, just get rid of it. If I can hit the delete button instead of the home button. There we go. So just delete that line. That's what I'm saying. Next, type out something to introduce the meeting notes. For example, here are the meeting notes from our meeting today, including the task assignments in red below. And guess what? I have a hotkey that does that for me. Ta-da! And then I just hit enter, and I'm literally ready to go. So I highly recommend having something like that too. And finally, leave the meeting. So, well, I should say on there, let's add to my meeting notes another thing that I want to change here, which is add, let's see, Ryan, add press the send email button, because I didn't tell you to do that. You kind of need to send it before you leave the meeting, because you should send this. So I'll hit send, and then the meeting notes go off and it's done. Any attachments, like documents that you pulled into the OneNote as an attachment, will actually be attached to the email as an attachment, which is nice as well. But again, for the most part, I highly recommend using hyperlinks to where it's hosted on Mojo, as opposed to burying our email servers with yet again another file hosted attachment, when we can just have them as SharePoint documents that we can reference through hyperlinks and be able to update through constant version changes and not have to worry about who's got some version of a document that was emailed at some point that's now out of date. So for what it's worth. Okay, so back to the training. Live demonstration. So we're going to run through and I'm going to do the whole thing from beginning to end and kind of show you how this all works. So example scenario. coordinating decorations for Halloween, because we love doing that here at inContact. So we're going to do a live demo on how this all works from the top. So we start in Outlook. I'm going to get rid of this guy, and let's go back. I guess it was this one. There we go. So we're going to schedule a meeting for 12 o'clock today, which is my lunch break, but I'd rather decorate for Halloween. So we're going to call this our decorating for Halloween. I'll just type something in just so I got something to start with. Halloween. This is the problem with typing in public, is you get stuff wrong. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to type out what? What are the 3 things that I'm supposed to have in every meeting? Okay, but that's too much typing, so I'm just going to do PDA7 and types it all out for me. Seriously, guys, hotkeys make you so much faster and allow you to do these meetings a whole lot better. And I've got all these kinds of things that I can show you if you want any of these scripts for like the PDA text expander and all that kind of stuff. I English very well.
I think sometimes that's the problem.
What is?
We just hurry up and do it but we don't take the time to do all this stuff because it's a lot.
Yep. But if you can make it so that it instantly happens in a fraction of a second, then you can do it every time. Okay, so what's my purpose for this meeting?
Decorating for Halloween.
Well, no, it's not actually decorating. It's
organizing the decorating.
So coordinating plans for decorating for Halloween. Here's the thing. Just like with KB articles, after you get started and you really get into it, you're like, no, that thing needs to be a little bit more specific, by the way, for Halloween. I'm actually going to take this purpose statement, and that now becomes my new subject, which is a little bit more specific. And I do that almost every time. Write out a purpose, deliverables, agenda, rework some things, and then go change the subject to what it really should say. So that would be a better meeting to come to coordinate plans for decorating Halloween, as opposed to decorate for Halloween, because somebody would get it, and my guys would be like, we're decorating for Halloween in May? That doesn't make any sense. We're like, no, we're coordinating plans. Okay. So next thing we do is deliverables. What's the deliverables? Most of the time, it's just going to be meeting notes and task assignments. Task assignments. I would say in 80% of the meetings that I go to, this is the deliverables that we need to come up with. Is just we need to talk about stuff, document what we talked about, get some task assignments, and make sure people know what's going to happen. Okay, and then for the agenda, so I come down here, and what would our first question be? What should be our theme for Halloween? That's a good start. What other questions would we add here? Just spitball with me here.
Who's purchasing the decorations?
Who's purchasing them? What is the budget? What other questions would we need to have answered in this kind of meeting? Yeah, where should we decorate? Where should we be decorating? Say what? Yeah. Who should be the team leaders for each section? So that's a good one. So, yeah. How do we put that into a question, though? Because if it's a duh question, there's no way that means. What?
Coordinate costumes to match our theme. Question.
Okay. Should we coordinate costumes with our theme? So now, really quickly here, let's say that we take the old approach and we don't do it with questions. We just say instead, theme for Halloween, purchasing, budget, words that are shorter and smaller. Yes, they are things, but they are things that we can put down, and people might understand what they mean, but they may not. Like, what about budget? Like, are we going to be showing us and discussing the budget, or are we going to be, there's all these questions that people come up with, and if you're not putting things in questions to be explicit about the information you're trying to extract, people will not understand or not prepare well for what they're doing, or their expectations may just be off. But writing things out in question form lets people explicitly know we're going to talk about what is the budget. We're going to ask that question and see if we can find an answer. So it's always best to do questions or agenda items in question form. Yes, Sarah?
So since a lot of the time for your meetings, you update your agenda?
Yes. So I do a series, and the series may have general agenda item questions that I go over on a regular basis. I do this with my one-on-ones. I do this with my team meetings. and each team meeting or each one-on-one that I have something specific I need to go over, like, hey, Jeff Cantor, this is what I want to talk with you about this week, then I'd go into that one instance of that series, and I would just update that one with specific agenda items for what that needs to be done. And I have task reminders to go in and update my meeting agendas for those meetings to make sure that they're explicitly specific for that meeting before each meeting happens. Good question. Okay, so now what do we do? We've got our purpose, deliverables, agenda. Are we good? Can we send? There's a few other small things we need to do. So we need to pick a location. So let's go to our scheduling assistant and say, okay, what meeting rooms are available in 3 Northwest, and see if there's anything available. Where's the invited attendees? Isn't there like check names? There we go. So we can do 3 meeting Northwest 01s. Is anybody going to be in this room? Yay, nobody's going to be in this room afterwards. So we're going to do that, and I'm going to invite the, let's see, the knowledge management team, and you can expand that here to say, okay, I'm inviting Ben and Remington. We're going to plan for Halloween. We're getting started early. No, we're not really doing this meeting, by the way.
I know.
Okay, so there's our meeting, and I can come back here. Now it's added the 2 with the meeting room and Ben Basket and Remington. It adds the location here automatically, which is great. And then I hit space and add my WebEx thing. Except for on this one, I don't think I'll need a WebEx and a conference bridge. But if I did, then that's where I can do that here. We're going to assume that we're going to have somebody from out of state. Like, I'm pretty sure I need Jay Clark from out of state because he's got great ideas about how to do this. So he's going to need a WebEx and a conference bridge, and we're going to add a WebEx meeting here. By the way, there's a link in the training for how to get WebEx productivity tools set up so you have that button in Outlook, because if you don't have it, you totally need it. And you hit the add WebEx button, and it just spins this little magical thing, and you enter in all the information that you should have pre-configured, and it just appends it onto the bottom of your WebEx. And when I send it or save it, it will add that information in there. So I'm going to show you what happens if I just save it. So it comes up, gathers all the information, and then it updates this, do not delete below, and it adds in all the WebEx information. That is amazing.
I would love.
Yes. Okay, so now we have our meeting room, our people that need to be invited, all that kind of stuff. So let's go back to the training, and we're going to go back to make sure that we got everything on our list here to get this meeting started. So did we do all these things? We got the subject, body, attendees, meeting room, all that kind of stuff? Okay, good. So we're going to send our meeting. Okay, so we've got our meeting sent. Now what do we do? So prepare before the meeting. So let's pretend that we're going in to start this meeting. So I'm going to go back here. And we've got our meeting coming up and the meeting room accepted. That's always good to make sure that you check. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to open up this meeting, and there's 2 ways to do it. You can either start taking meeting notes right from the object itself, so take your own meeting notes, or you can do it here, take meeting notes here, and it brings up that same little thing, take meeting notes, or my personal preference is to just pull up the OneNote and say, okay, I'm going to take meeting notes here, and you're like, where do I want this section to be before I get this thing started? I'm going to put this in just the knowledge management team. That's fine. So I'm going to hit add page, and then it adds this new page, but it's totally blank. And I come up to meeting details and say, okay, where's this coordinate plans for decorating Halloween? And voila, it pulls all the information in here. And we can see it. I always like to pull this back to the actual time that it's going to be, because it does it for the time the page was created, but I don't always like that. And you can change the date too if you're like preparing for meeting notes for a following day or something like that. So I've got my location, I've got the link to the meeting notes, so I want to expand the invitation message. I normally also like to get rid of all this junk except for the WebEx meeting link, because that's all anybody really cares about if you needed to send it to somebody. That just shortens it up. And then you've got your participants right there. If it's a short enough participants list, it just does it open by default, but if it's long enough, you have to open it manually. I don't understand, but that's the way it goes. And then you've got your meeting notes here. So at this point, we're just going to go through same kind of stuff that we did before. We got our meeting notes, and we're going to pull these up with headings. There we go. Let's see if we got everything we needed to. Control-Alt-2. So we double-click on the invitation message, copy the agenda, format each question, start the WebEx and connect to the TV, pretend that we did that. Acknowledge and note each of the attendees, wait up to 5 minutes for the meeting attendees to arrive and for people to get there. So we're gonna play a little role play scenario here and say that we just started. So, okay, I'm here, Ben, you're here, Remington's here. Jay, you on the phone? Scramble for the mute button.
Sorry, I had you on mute, yep.
Okay, good. Just wanted to check. Okay, so we got Jan on the phone. So, okay, guys, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go over coordinating plans for decorating for Halloween. So our deliverables are just the meeting notes and the task assignments, and our agenda is what should be our theme for Halloween, who's purchasing the item, or who's purchasing them. There we go, I can read. What is the budget? Where should we be decorating? Who should be the team leaders for each section? And should we coordinate costumes with our theme? So any other questions that we want to go over or add to this before we get started?
Do you like to generally copy and paste the agenda down to the notes so it's in both places, or is that anything?
Yeah, I always do.
Okay.
Because this is basically what we intended to. This is what I told people about beforehand. Because sometimes I'll actually I'll make an agenda update or something, but I won't put it in the meeting, or I'll have pre-typed out stuff down here where if the first 3 meeting questions are things that I need to be able to provide answers for, then I'll actually have typed out in those section headings information before the meeting even starts. So it's important to have them in both places, because you don't want to take the meeting notes in your agenda up here. That's what this section is for, but you want to make sure that your meeting notes match what was in the agenda. So yes, it is important to copy it over. Okay, so we go through and we decide what's going to be our theme for Halloween, and it's going to be superheroes and who's purchasing them. Remington, since he's got a lot of money, and the corporate card. And what is our budget? It's $1 kajillion. If I can spell kajillion. $1 kajillion. And where should we, and you just kind of go through things as we go through. So where should we be decorating our cubes? And who should be our team leader for each section? Ben gets to be the team leader for this thing. And should we coordinate costumes with our theme? Yes, so Remington is going to be, and Ben is going to be, and Ryan is going to be, and Jay is going to be, and we decide who's going to be doing each thing. So, and we can throw out some task assignments too, and I like to put task assignments as just a separate section at the bottom as opposed to embedding things throughout. You can do it either way, and I do it either way occasionally. There's no specific way. You just need to make sure that they are documented. So Ben is going to go to Zerkers to find possible decorations early next week, and so forth and so on. So those are the meeting notes and stuff we need to take through as we go through the meeting. So we've started all that. We're starting the meeting, starting in 5 minutes, read through the purpose agenda, start by reading through the questions on the agenda. We take notes as we go, use the headings to visually distinguish each thing. By the way, we didn't go over this one, but heading 3 is kind of nice in that if you get into this and you're talking about, you know, different things that we have lots of different information, and we have another header here and another header here with other information that we want to be able to keep separate and distinct. You can see this starts getting really messed up, so you can hit Control-3 and it gives you a smaller header, and this is the point where I would suck things in with Tab to be able to differentiate and make things easier to see. This is basic outlining. It's just how do you structure and organize information as the layout on the page to make it easier to read. And the headings, number 1, number 2, and number 3, go a long way to making it easy to do and just tab things over into the right outline format. Okay, note only highlights answers provided and decisions made, and use bullets and numbers. Run the meeting and task notes, so document the tasks and use the control one for those kind of things. Include hyperlinks. Take pictures on the whiteboard of anything that needs to be there. Use indents. Other useful tools, we didn't go over these, but here are some other ones. So if you wanted to, you could use, instead of OneNote, decorating for Halloween as a checklist list and rearrange things in orders. This is really good for things that have chronological order or some sort of sequence that's necessary. Like if you wanted to do a customer journey map, this would be a great tool to use because you could just spitball and throw processes out and then figure out as you throw them out how they fit in order in relation to each other and be able to move them up and down that way. The Note app and the PowerPoint, and then ending the meeting. So we review the task items with the people in the room. So okay, so Ben, you're going to go to Zerkers and whatever action items we've got else down there. Finish the meeting a few minutes early and press the email page button. So we'll do that real quick. So we go up here to email page. We already got our meeting attendees. We've got the subject. we go up here and just select this and replace it with the line that I like that makes more sense. Let's go back to this. So we delete that, type out something like this, and then you press the send button, and then you leave the meeting. And that is our live demonstration. And we're 14 minutes early. That's everything I wanted to go over and show. Does anybody have any questions about what we just went over?
The PowerPoint has the instructions on how to add the WebEx links to the Outlook.
Yes, so let's go back to that really quick. So if we go to here, add a WebEx, if you click on this thing and open the hyperlink, it pulls you to the KB article that's called Install and Optimize WebEx Productivity Tools. And it tells you how to install it, how to optimize it, how to configure it, how it works, you know, the different things about how to request a WebEx account if you need it, all that kind of stuff. So I built this just a few weeks ago. It used to be in our ramp-up plan for just Remington and I, but I was like, people need to know this, so I'm going to put this out here. So there you go. That's how you do it, so that you can just do it with one click at a WebEx meeting. Totally worth it. Yes, Jessica.
Can you share?
Yes.
All of them.
So let's go to the other link on this. So many of these tasks can be done quickly using AutoHotkey scripts. So oh, no, don't do that. So let's go to, I don't care, add to dictionary, thank you. Open hyperlink. Okay, so this is the KB article for what is AutoHotkey. And AutoHotkey is, and it talks about what it is and what you can do with it, and how it works, and quick getting started guide. So you download and install the getting started guide, and then you get the starter template, autohotkey.aht. So let's open this up, and it pulls up here. And as a task assignment, yes, Jessica, I will take all of the meeting note tasks or the meeting note text expanders I use today and make sure that they're in this standard My AutoHotkey starter script. Okay.
You might have passwords embedded into it, though.
You really want all those?
Yeah, crap, wrong one.
Keyboard, how many names?
Because I use
He does.
PW3.
Yep. Most of you people have names in.
You can't mess with spelling.
Yes. No, seriously. Anytime I type a person's name more than once, I actually have, you know, hotkeys in there for it. For example, we have Ryan Bird and Craig Lawrence and Sarah Anderson and Jessica Mitten and oh, come on, Jessica Mitten, Sarah Anderson. Why didn't Sarah Anderson work? There we go. And Remington Royland and Ben Basket and oh, Bethany Bergener. Seriously. Oh, let's fix that. So I'm gonna come over here.
Man, I think that's a little hint there.
Were we all sevens there? Is that your?
Yeah. So I just typed the first initial, last initial, and first initial, last initial, and the number 7, and then it changes it to something else.
I was wondering how you remember everything.
Yeah, I thought you had 7 different BBs. Fabian, you remember?
No. For community manager or community management, CM7, but for Chuck McDermott, which is the same first and last, I do CM2. So that's my alternate. You can do whatever you want. It doesn't really even matter. Okay, but here's.
Dig into your brain.
Well, this is why we're having the chat. Okay, so this is my AutoHotkey. So standard configuration settings for things that it just does on the script. AutoHotkey script management shortcuts. So this is the shortcut key to open up your shortcut keys. And this is the shortcut key to close, save, and reload your shortcut keys. So they're just the AutoHotkey script management shortcuts. Now you have specific hotkeys like, you know, open specific folders, open specific applications, do specific automation things like replace spaces with underscores so that you can save it into SharePoint so you don't get in trouble with your boss because I'm an underscore Nazi when it comes to SharePoint. So there you go. Projects, so you can go to specific project folders with project names or checklist lists for different task lists you do as part of my task management strategy, or smart sheet things for different projects you're running for project management. And then there's text expanders, so you can do things like, let's see, I forget what this one is. Pull up the AutoHotkey text expander section. So this is the hotkey to pull up the text expander section in the hotkeys. And here's the hotkey to add a new hotkey. For example, I can hit Control-Shift-S. Cannot find, you want to create a new file. No, oh, I know what happened. Hold on, let me just do this real quick. My AutoHotkey script, which I'm going to exit, overrode my Ryan Campbell's hotkeys script, and that's what was causing the problem. Let me reload this dude. Don't install my hotkeys and the template hotkeys at the same time. That's the learning experience I'm having. So I'm going to go back to downloads, which of course I have a hotkey to go to downloads, and I'll just edit this one but not run the script. So let's edit this with, I just want it with Notepad. Okay, so if I hit Control-Shift-S with my hotkeys, it pulls up my hotkeys, jumps all the way down here, and I can type in BB7 or Ben Baskets, and apologize profusely in public for not having updated this before. And I can come up here to the BB. Oh, you were here. It was my BB8 is my thing for doing email addresses, but I don't have to use that much anymore. Yeah. What it was is in the My Auto Hotkeys template script, which is this guy's here. I had Bethany Virginer because at the time when we created this, she was one of the people in the short list because she was one that was working here. So for what it's worth, you are correct in my updated script. Just this is the old template script. Yep, it's an excuse. Here's another one that's fun. You hit Control-J and it puts in the date and timestamp. Dink. So you can do those, and there's different variations. So, and it always knows today's date. So there are lots and lots of things that you can do with Auto Hotkey, and they make meetings more efficient. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. And my task assignment, which I will add into my meeting notes for this thing. Let's go back to effective meeting note management. That was in, how do I prepare for a meeting, start a meeting? Which one was that on? Let's see. Okay. That's scheduling the meeting. It talks about Auto Hotkey. So I'm going to go back to my meeting notes for, come on, how do you schedule a meeting? And I'm going to put in a task item here, which is make sure to add all hotkeys used in today's meeting to the template script for Auto Hotkey. Where's went to Jeff Cantor? Here's the problem with hotkeys is sometimes you hit the wrong key and fun random stuff happens, which is actually a fun way to learn new hotkeys, but mostly unintentional and causes problems. Any other questions?
It sounds like you have a whole other hour-long segment on task items. You just want to give us a quick 30-second or 2-minute thing on how you can organize your tasks like that?
Literally, the task management training is a full hour.
I was going to say you should schedule that one.
If you're interested in the task management training, send me an email and I'll see if I can schedule another version of the task management training for you guys as well. So long story short, my biggest personal passion is productivity and efficiency. And task management is all the best practices I've learned subscribing to and reading, thousands of life hacker articles over the last decade and trying out things in terms of what does and doesn't work well in terms of personal management for my task assignments for what needs to be done through project management, through personal non-project management, program management, all that kind of stuff. So that's the high-level overview. And I go over and talk about the best practices and the tools that I find seem to work well. And the best one that I found is CheckThis. And so that's the one that I highly recommend and use. Yes, Sarah.
So, not get well, I'm going to get ABS people who are not ABS.
Okay.
But for tasks, I mean, how do you ask your coaches, like, what are the tasks that you should be creating, or is it just a discussion of how everything's going? How would you, I mean, mostly it's been a discussion of how it's going and, kind of ideas of what's working. But, I mean, I think having tasks would put a little bit more, accountability on that, but I don't know.
I see where you're coming from in terms of, so the question is for the phone. So specifically in the KCS coaching meetings like you run, Sarah, the lead coach for the TAMS partner support group, the task assignments that you give really depends on the kind of meeting. And specifically with the weekly KCS coach meetings, I don't know that there is a whole lot of task assignments that you can give.
I can give them, but.
That's another thing is as a lead coach where you're a peer with other people, it's really not in a place to be able to give people assignments. The task assignments is really more in a place where you as the person running the meeting can record what you need to do after the meeting. Like you see, I have a bunch of updates I'm going to make after this meeting to the training and to my script. And it's also good for being able to capture anything that somebody volunteers to do. Most of the time when you're barking orders as to what you want people to do in terms of task assignments is if you are an actual project manager running a project coordination meeting where you get together all the resources and figure out who does what, and then you just document it all so that everybody can go and do what they need to afterwards. So I'll send out these meeting notes for me, but nobody has task assignments on here but me, so nobody's really going to care. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay. Perfect. Any other questions? This is our 5-minute mark, so I need to close this meeting early.
So once you've had a meeting and you've recorded all this, you're archiving them essentially in the pages list over there on the left?
Yeah, so these are the notebooks, and then the sections within each notebook, so like the knowledge management notebook, and then there's a the manager knowledge management notebook. So there's lots of different things I have as a responsibility as the manager of knowledge. But I have a knowledge management program notebook, which is for general stuff, and that's the section in that notebook. And then I have the different pages within each notebook. And yeah, I keep each page and just have a running log of all the pages that I go through, and sometimes I archive them up into a high-level roll-up of, you know, all the stuff from Q4 2015 or Q3 2015, that kind of stuff. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, because I'm wondering about if you have to remember what decision was made 6 months ago in a certain meeting, how do you do that?
It's harder. You have to go find the meeting notes from it. So, but the search functionality inside of OneNote is actually pretty robust, and you can make it, you know, if I needed to find out something about Coveo, for example, I could come in here and find in the title, on the page. I could, you know, change the functionality in terms of searching just this, all notebooks, this notebook, this section, this group, this section on this page. So you can make it as small or as defined as you want to. So the search is pretty good inside of OneNote, which helps a lot. There's one other thing that I could go over as part of this, but I won't, like, get finished early. And I think it's linked in that KB article that we looked at in terms of WebEx, which talks about how do you record a WebEx and then how do you share it with people so that they can access it afterwards. So I will be sending out these meeting notes. I will also be putting that recording onto a SharePoint site and sending out a link to it. So you'll see how the end result works, but I just won't walk through the steps. But they're in that article. There you go. Okay. That works. All right, so we've already got our meeting notes up for this one. I'm going to add or pull this one up this one. We're going to do the actual meeting notes. No, it's on the recording. People are going to see it anyway. All right, I'm going to hit send, and we're done. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan.
Welcome. Bye, guys.
Thanks.
I didn't know.
Yeah, Sarah doesn't even have any.
Yeah, I see that you're on